Hey everybody, it's Jackie with Jackie's Recent Things, and today I'm going to show you a little bit of a different way to cover your pumpkins with fabric. You still get the same look, but however, even in doing like a half pumpkin, whatever, this will probably be easier for some of you to do. So let's get started. So these pumpkins that I ordered, they're smaller pumpkins. They come plain. No stem, no nothing, styrofoam. I ordered these off of Amazon. So for the pumpkin stem, I'm just going to use wine corks. The reason I'm using wine corks is because they're really inexpensive. You can get a ton of them off of Amazon. You can order them, so that's why I like using the wine corks. And then you can cover them however you want to match your pumpkin. I blinged mine up quite a bit. Alright, so let's get started. So I've already started one pumpkin, so you didn't have to sit here and watch me as long, but let's go through the process of how to get started. So the first thing that I did, because some of y'all may not have the right tool to poke a hole in something, but you probably do have a hot glue gun sitting around. So you can actually take your hot glue gun and put your hole in the middle. So I'm just going to take my hot glue gun. It's styrofoam. I'm not squirting any glue out. And I'm just going to stab my hole in the top. And that hole in the top is solely to secure the fabric in while I tuck it. Same thing for the bottom. Pretty easy, a little bit easier than using some of the tools. So I wanted to show you that really quick as a different method to poke your holes. Now the next thing that you're going to want to do for this, you're going to want to measure just like you do with the other pumpkins. However, you're going to want to add at least a 1/4 inch to your measurement, because you need enough fabric to tuck in to both sides. So this measures 2 inches. As always, just go around and double check. If you are not confident, add a 1/2 inch. Like this one's a little bit over 2 inches when I measure it, so I would add a 1/2 inch to mine, just to make sure that it goes all the way around. So then what you're going to do to get to this point, you're going to need a sharp blade. And you're going to start at the top. Now you're not trying to score all the way through. Basically you're just trying to score enough to tuck fabric. But you want to start at the hole. Let me zoom in so you can see a little bit better. So you want to start at the hole and just gently score down. Make sure you stay in the groove. It doesn't have to be very deep because you're not tucking that much fabric. Make sure you keep all your digits out of the way. Now this is just a little bit more time consuming than the other way that I showed you, but it does create a different, more finished look. So if you're doing really, really big pumpkins that have different dimension and things like that, I would recommend doing this. And I would also recommend doing it on the half pumpkins. I will show you how much easier it is with those. Alright, so now that we got all our scores, I got my fabric cut already. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my orange fabric in. And what I'm going to use to tuck my fabric is just a simple bamboo skewer. So I'm going to gather it up just like I normally would to do it the other way, except for what I'm going to do first is I'm going to poke it down into the hole. Now, because we're tucking the fabric, there's no need for hot glue, so some of you that may not be, you know, proficient with your hot glue, this might work better for you. And then you're going to pull it taut like you normally do, and then start at the top and tuck. And you're just pushing your fabric into that crevice that you created, and it's not going to come out. Now you can actually do this same method with ornament balls as well. And I would recommend definitely doing this on the larger ornament balls. And then when I get around to the back side, I'll cut off my little bit of excess. Tuck it in. And as you can see, I didn't cut my fabric wide enough, so that's what will happen. If you don't cut your fabric wide enough, it'll stick out a little bit. But when I put trim on, it'll cover it up. So I'm not overly concerned about that, but when I make my next set, I will make sure to cut my fabric wide enough. So once again, I'm going to poke my fabric in the hole first. To keep it smooth, I'm just going to pull it down, hold it kind of tight, and tuck away. Once again, get to the end, and I'm going to cut off a great deal of the excess. And then we have our orange color on. So now we're going to go around and add our black and white harlequin. And it only takes 2 pieces of fabric to do this small of a pumpkin. So I just go ahead and cut mine in 4ths because it just works out that way. Then if you have frays and stuff, it's just easier because you can just tuck it into the edge. And we've got 3 more pieces to go. And like I said, as you can see, it's a little bit more, just a little bit more time consuming. But it stops your colors from overlapping on your darks and your lights. Now this would go quicker if I had cut my fabric a little bit wider, because I'm kind of having to fight to keep it even. So that's the importance of adding a little bit more than what I did when I measured. And I'm actually going to show you the difference in the speed real quick. I'm just going to grab some fabric and cut it again to show you the difference in cutting it the right way and then not wide enough like I did. Because I had cut that 2 1/4. So let me come over here and add to it so you can see the difference on how much quicker it can go. Because I definitely don't like people getting discouraged from trying something new, especially when you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to take forever. I'm trying to cut a lot of the bulk out so that it'll fit better in the hole. And I'm using the sharp end of my stick to really make sure that it tucks into the hole so I don't have to get hot glue out. See, I'm just running along now and grabbing all the frays and tucking them in the crevice because that's easier than grabbing my scissors and trying to get each individual little one. And even sometimes as I'm doing these things, it occurs to me that this might be an easier way, so I'm going to try to tuck it in the hole at the bottom first. That way I'm not having to pull on my fabric, and just I can focus on tucking it in. As you can see, that did go a little bit smoother for us, so please forgive my little pauses. I'm sorry about that, but my carpal tunnel's kind of fired up, so I'm off to the side shaking my hand down to get the feeling back in my hand from time to time. we're going to enlist the ice pick. And no, I'm not worried about cramming a hole in my fabric. That Harlequin fabric seems to fray pretty good no matter what I do. So in doing it like this, you create a nice channel to lay your hot glue down to add your trim. So we're just going to trim this out really quick. And I'm just going to measure my pieces of trim to lay in there. And then as always, what I like to do, so that the hot glue is cooling and I'm moving forward, I'm going to lay a couple pieces down. I think I did one too many. I did. Pull that one up. Then we're just going to circle around the bottom. Don't forget to leave your hole at the top kind of open for your stem. And oops, sorry about that. If you notice, I told you I wasn't too terribly worried about where my fabric was pooching out, because when I came back with my trim, it was just going to tuck it in. But I will definitely be more careful on my measuring from now on to prevent that. Because with doing it like this, you can actually probably skip doing the black trim, unless that's going to be your trim. But I definitely like to do this before putting my bling on. It's just a personal choice. So even still, to put my bling on, the one thing I'm not going to change, because I really like the way it looks still, and it gives a very clean look to the bottom, and I'm not having to stress out. I'm still going to put my black dot on the bottom to polish this up. Before adding my bling trim, because I like the way that lines up just very nicely and just looks so much more professional finished. So I'm still going to run around and hot glue these down, and I just take my stick, poke it down, and the bling that I got, once again, comes on a big roll like this from Walmart, and it's super easy to cut it to the size that you need. I found that it's far cheaper than buying it blinged out in a row of two if I just do it myself. And those rolls, doing it myself like that, they go pretty far. As always, if you have spiders going across your fabric with spider web going across your fabric with your hot glue, just leave it. Don't try to remove it while it's wet. When it dries, you'll be able to just dust it right off. While those last couple pieces are cooling down, we'll go ahead and move forward, and I will show you how I'm going to cover the cork. So I've got some felt here that I'm going to use, and I measured my cork and I cut the felt to the correct size for my cork, but we need to cover the top. So I'm just going to put some hot glue down here on the top and just simply stick my cork down. I'm going to do a bead of glue around here and tuck this edge down. Keep in mind, y'all, I'm always using low temp glue so I don't burn my fingers. I'm just going to kind of hold that for a second. Now we'll come in with our piece to go around the cork and put a little bead of glue on that. I'm going to be very careful not to put a thick bead, but just a thin bead. Just roll it up. And another little thin bead of glue. You don't need much with felt actually, because hot glue and felt are like the perfect relationship. So I'm going to cut this little bit off the bottom. I'm not worried about how the bottom looks because it's going to go face down. But now I'm going to add my little bit of bling. So I'm going to measure how long. Cut it off right there. Then I'm going to put a bead of glue all the way down. Get my stick so I can set it down. And then while that cools, because I don't want to touch it till it's cool, I'm going to come back and finish the bling on my pumpkin. I'm just going to go in the channel here, lay glue all the way down. I'm going to pull my bling nice and tight. No need to touch the glue. Don't touch it. And then up here at the top, I'm going to cut off the excess. And I'm going to use because I want to know how far to go, because I want my bling to definitely go a little bit past my cork. Now for this pumpkin, we're going to put the cork on a little bit different than we ever have before. said, just pull it down nice and tight. You don't have to go back and set anything. And always remember, do not worry about your glue spider webs till you're done. Let it cool off a little bit and they will dust right off. Set that to the side, let that cool. Let's come back to our cork. So I tried to do this in one step without waiting for it to cool, and it was kind of ended up being a little bit of a mess. So that's why I decided we'll just wait for it to cool. So once again, we're going to put a bead of glue down. And so I don't make a glue mess. I'm holding it tightly with my thumb. And this time we're going to have to hold it till it cools. So the next thing that we're going to do is, when I did the first one, the cork didn't sit as well and it was hard to get in. So instead of making my hole bigger, I already had my skewer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my skewer and I'm going to stick that down into my cork. Now you might want to use something sharp. Kind of pre-drill a hole. And then we don't need much of the stick to set down into the hole. So I'm going to cut quite a bit of that off and then test that, make sure it fits. If it doesn't, you can either go a little bit longer with the hole. I want to go a little bit longer with my hole because I want to put hot glue down in there to hold my fabric and whatnot. So now that it fits down in there, I'm going to shoot quite a bit of hot glue down into the hole, and then I'm going to go just slightly around the edge of my bling so that I hold my bling down as well with the cork. And there you have it. So this is just a different way of covering your pumpkins, and I think that this will work out better on the half pumpkins for some of y'all. So kind of let me show you really quick. I'll kind of skip past some of the process of making the back just to show you this really quick. So you're just going to take your blade and start here. And you probably should cut off a lot of this hot glue at the top. So I'm just going to kind of take my blade and get that off really quick. And this is the pumpkin from Walmart. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start at the top. And I'm going to stay in the ditch. I think some of y'all know I'm pretty partial to my blade because it's kind of got a stop point to it naturally. So for this one, and I'm just going to show you on one piece where I cut it, we're going to measure. That's 2 inches, and I'm just going to kind of run down this to make sure. So this piece that I cut previously was 2.5 inches, and it's going to go from top to bottom nicely, so we're just going to use it. Tuck our fabric at the top. Notice how we're eliminating the hot glue at the back for this. So I'm just tucking it a little bit more at the top so I can come down here and pull on this a little bit better. So tuck it in at the bottom. Now that it's tucked in at the bottom, I can just run down and finish tucking my edges. And then as you can see, from top to bottom, you end up with a cleaner look doing that. And it can actually eliminate the need for you to do trim if you don't want to do trim on these pieces. So it actually works really well for the half pumpkin. Wanted to show you all that really quick to kind of finish things off. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this different way to cover your pumpkins with fabric. But now that I have a complete set, which is pretty cool, of pumpkins. I think we're ready to make a wreath. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Y'all have a great, blessed day. Bye, y'all.